This is English shorthand dictation number 229 and the dictation speed is 160 words per minute. Ready? Start. Honorable Speaker, Sir, before entering into the discussion, I would like to submit to you that you should consider the point of order raised by the senior member. The clarification given by the Honorable Minister does not have sufficient relation with Rule 66 of the Rules of Procedure. Even though I support the intention of the bill, I would like to submit some suggestions and criticisms which have come from the various corners of the society and have also been published in the medical journals. I think the Honorable Minister will consider all the suggestions and the criticism in this regard at the time of clause-by-clause consideration. All other members who spoke earlier pointed it out that the bill excludes same-sex couples and the live-in couples from accessing ART. The bill missed an opportunity to recommend that the reproductive rights, which are internationally and constitutionally recognized as universal, be extended to live-in couples and same-sex couples. It is noteworthy that the eligibility for access to surrogacy under the Surrogacy Regulation Bill includes a medically necessitated condition, but the ART Bill restricts it only to infertility. It has failed to fully address the right of donors, especially egg donors. This is despite the fact that hormonal treatment is necessary for an egg donor and the procedure for extraction of eggs is invasive and can potentially be deadly too. The bill recommends insurance coverage for the donor for 12 months and also social security insurance, the parameters of which are not clear. It also recommends the payment of maternity benefits to an egg donor who suffers from miscarriage. This recommendation is really perplexing. Since the donor is not carrying a pregnancy, the question of a miscarriage does not arise. There is no provision for donor compensation or even the reimbursement of expenses for loss of salary, time, and effort. The labor involved in producing and sharing biomaterial for the benefit of third parties is not recognized. Any compensation is available only when there is an untoward medical incident by way of a miscarriage. This is justified in keeping with the humanitarian nature of the ART bill. The crucial definitions in both the bills remain unsynchronized. For example, the Surrogacy Regulation Bill does not define ART clinics or banks. The ART bill defines these terms. Then there are terms defined in the Surrogacy Regulation Bill but not in the ART bill, like fertilization, implantation, fetus, and sex selection. The definition of infertility differs between the two bills. Given the overlap between surrogacy and ART procedures, precision in the individual bills as well as consistency between the two is critical, especially when it comes to medical terms. Several stakeholders have criticized the ART bill for prescribing long prison sentences with punishment being disproportionately high in relation to the offense committed. Differential treatment of defendants who have committed the same offenses under both the bills will constitute arbitrary executive action, which is unconstitutional. The bill has omitted intervening on significant issues with constitutional ramifications such as access to ART and compensation for the egg donor. As some of my previous speakers pointed out, permitting medical tourism and access for foreigners changes the economics of the ART market. In the absence of pricing regulation for ART clinics and banks, these organizations will have unchecked growth and only the wealthiest will be able to access ART. It will be very disappointing for millions of people who aspire to form families but cannot afford to have access to ART. Meanwhile, women who provision reproductive materials and labor will continue to be devalued, uncompensated, and unprotected as underground markets for egg donors and surrogacy would thrive. There is one more point which is totally missing in the ART bill. The point is about the rights of children born out of ART to know their parentage, which is crucial to their best interests and is increasingly accepted as a norm globally and was protected under previous drafts of the ART bill. Honorable Speaker, Sir, I stand here to support this bill. Many previous speakers have highlighted many points. While listening to the speech of the senior member who spoke before me, I felt like I was sitting in a gynecology class during my post-graduation days. it is a pleasure that I am here with you all. Sir, I want to make a few points about the bill. The ART bill provides for the regulation and supervision of the ART clinics and banks. So this bill is for regulation, prevention of misuse, safe and ethical practice of ART services and the matters connected therewith. Sir, this bill also intends to protect the affected women and children from exploitation, to support donor with an insurance cover, to regulate multiple embryo implantation and protect the children born through ART. The bill further aims to regulate preservation of sperms and embryo by the ART banks and intends to make pre-genetic testing mandatory for pre-existing diseases only for the benefit of the child born through ART. India's fertility industry is an integral part of the country's growing medical tourism industry, which experienced 30% growth in the year 2000 and 15% growth between the years 2005 and 2010. Despite so much activity in India, there are no standardization protocols yet, and reporting is still very inadequate. Furthermore, there are only guidelines on ART and no law still exists. There has been debate on the medical, ethical and legal aspects of the ART. That is why this bill has come to regulate all these things. So, to mention a few points, the bill provides that every ART clinic and bank must be registered under the National Registry of Banks and Clinics of India. The National Registry will be established under the bill and will act as a central database with the details of all ART clinics and banks in the country. State governments will appoint registration authorities for facilitating the registration process. Honorable Chairperson, sir, a child born through ART will be deemed to be a biological child of the commissioning couple and will be entitled to the rights and privileges available to a natural child of a commissioning couple. A donor will not have any parental rights over the child. These are the few regularization points that I wanted to make. The other point is about the establishment of boards. With regard to the national board and state boards, the bill provides that the national board and state boards for surrogacy constituted under the surrogacy regulation bill will act as national board and state boards respectively for the regulation of the ART services also. The key powers and functions of the national board include advising the central government on ART related policy matters and reviewing and monitoring the implementation of the provisions of the bill. Any clinic or bank advertising or offering sex selective ART will be punishable with imprisonment between 5 and 10 years or fine between rupees 10 lakh and rupees 25 lakh or both. No court will take cognizance of offences under the bill except on a complaint made by the national board or state boards or by any officer authorized by the boards. The standing committee also made some recommendations. The committee noted that the cost of ART services varies across clinics. It recommended that a standard operating procedure should be formulated to ensure the uniform cost of ART services and there should be adherence to global quality standards. Further, a monitoring mechanism should be set up under the national board to prohibit commercialization of ART services by the private sector providers. Sir, I would like to submit that the bill is a welcome legislation and the impact of it would be that it would bring about the registration of all the clinics, it would control unethical ART practices, it would improve the quality of ART services, it would facilitate framing of requisite policies as we would be having all the data, and most importantly, the needy couples would be assured of the ethical practice of ART. At present, there are only 6 IVF clinics in the government sector, while the remaining thousands of IVF centers are in the private sector. So, the government should ensure that each medical college or premier government hospital or institute must have IVF as part of ART facilities so as to enable the common poor masses to avail the services of ART. Sir, finally, from our state of Andhra Pradesh, I would like to highlight that after the bifurcation of state, absence of Tier 1 cities in the state has resulted in no scope for private healthcare sector to provide super specialty healthcare services in the state. This is only possible through setting up of public sector institutions. Hence, I would like to request the government to approve the proposal for setting up of 13 new medical colleges that have been submitted already by our Honorable Chief Minister. Madam Chairperson, at the outset, I would like to congratulate the Honorable Minister for bringing this comprehensive legislation. It is a good attempt to fill up a legislative vacuum and a good attempt at providing a legislation for a subject which is important and which required a legislation. The urge to have a child is there for religious or psychological reasons because there is a belief that one survives through a child. So in that background, people who are not blessed with a child are prone to exploitation or vulnerable to exploitation. They have been exploited in the absence of a valid law to regulate ART. It is a right law. It is a step in the right direction.